Kale's breath hitched in his throat as the heavy boots of the syndicate guards thundered closer, their shadows stretching long across the flickering neon signs of the alien black market. His crouched form pressed against a rusted metal crate, muscles coiled tight like a predator ready to spring. The cold sweat trickled down his spine, but his mind raced faster than his pounding heart. If they catch me now, everything ends. The stolen weapon, the uprising, humanity's last chance. The weight of those thoughts crushed him, yet steeled his nerves. Failure wasn't an option, not this time. Suddenly, a sharp explosion shattered the cacophony of haggling voices and clinking tech parts. The guards faltered, some stumbling as debris rained down in showers of sparks and dust. The chaos was Kale's lifeline. Seizing the moment, he darted from his hiding spot, limbs pumping with desperate speed, weaving through the milling crowd of alien traders, whose eyes flicked up in startled confusion. The black market was a chaotic organism, pulsing with raw energy and danger. A tangled labyrinth of shadowed stalls and flickering holo ads, it thrived on the illicit, smuggled weapons, forbidden tech, and secrets whispered in languages few could decipher. Kale's boots barely made a sound as he slipped past towering insectoid merchants with iridescent carapaces and wiry reptilian dealers whose slit pupils glimmered with suspicion. Each step was a gamble. One misstep meant death or capture. His fingers brushed the small, concealed pouch strapped beneath his jacket, the stolen weapon's core humming faintly against his side. It wasn't just any piece of contraband. Whispers had circulated through the underworld for weeks, rumors of a device capable of galactic domination, a weapon so powerful it could tip the scales of an entire war. Kale knew what was at stake. If the syndicates reclaimed it, the fragile hope for rebellion would shatter. A gruff voice broke through the ambient noise. "Did you hear? The shipment arrives tonight. The Starbreaker. They say it can obliterate entire fleets with a single shot." A tall, three-eyed alien trader leaned conspiratorially toward a bulky, gray-skinned smuggler, his mandibles twitching in excitement. Kale's jaw tightened. "Starbreaker," he muttered under his breath, eyes darting toward the whispered source. The name alone sent a shiver down his spine. He'd stolen the core component of that very weapon, a gamble that had nearly cost him everything. As he moved deeper into the maze of stalls, the air thickened with the scent of burnt ozone and alien spices. Neon lights flickered erratically, casting the faces of the crowd in lurid shades of green and violet. Somewhere ahead, a quarrel erupted in a harsh, guttural tongue, drawing a cluster of armed mercenaries who cracked knuckles and readied plasma pistols. Kale kept low, heart-hammering, every sense alert. Memories of his training flashed. Silent breathing, measured steps, the art of blending into the chaos. Yet beneath it all simmered a fierce determination. This was more than survival, it was rebellion. Humanity's last chance to reclaim freedom from the iron grip of alien syndicates. A sudden shout echoed behind him. "There, the thief!" Syndicate guards surged forward, their weapons glowing with deadly intent. Kale's muscles tensed, every instinct screaming escape. He dove behind a stall piled high with pulsating energy cells, the sharp scent stinging his nostrils. The explosion from earlier had thrown the market into uproar, but the guards were regaining control fast. A sleek, amphibious trader eyed Kale suspiciously. "You look like trouble, human, something you want to share." His voice was oily, laced with menace. Kale forced a tight smile, stepping lightly past him. "Just passing through, friend," he said, voice low. "Nothing but shadows and whispers." The alien's eyes narrowed but didn't pursue. Kale's luck held for now. Turning a corner, he caught sight of a narrow exit guarded by two hulking brutes clad in armored exosuits. The path was blocked and time was running out. His mind raced, plans, alternatives, desperation weaving together. The stolen weapon's core pulsed against his side, a cold reminder of the stakes. Then, as if fate answered his silent plea, another explosion rocked the market's far end, this time closer, sharper. The guards snapped their heads toward the blast, confusion breaking their formation. Kale seized the opening and bolted. His legs churned, lungs burning, weaving through stunned crowds scattering in panic. Above him, flickering signs sputtered and died, plunging parts of the market into darkness. The cacophony of shouts, gunfire, and crashing metal blended into a symphony of chaos. Kale didn't look back, not once. His mission was clear: deliver the weapon core to the rebels waiting beyond the city's edge. The uprising depended on it. Humanity's last chance depended on him. As he slipped into the shadowed alleyways beyond the market, the distant thrum of pursuit faded, but the danger remained. Every breath, every heartbeat was a countdown. The smugglers' rebellion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Kale's fingers trembled as he adjusted the forged credentials clipped to his chest. The holographic ID, flickering faintly under the black market's harsh neon glare. "Just breathe," he muttered, voice barely a whisper lost amid the cacophony of alien chatter and clinking tech. His dark eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and wary, every instinct screaming that one wrong move could unravel everything. The smuggler's hard-earned calm masked the storm within, a maelstrom of fear, guilt, and relentless purpose. He was no stranger to these underworld dens, but this operation felt different, more dangerous, more personal. The stolen data had been clear. The prototype weapon, codenamed Starbreaker, was arriving tonight. A device of unimaginable power, capable of decimating entire fleets. Kale had gambled everything to get this far, and failure wasn't an option. Not with the ghosts of his past clawing at his conscience. Virelian mind flicked back like a shard of lightning slicing through the darkness. He remembered the day his homeworld, Virelian, burned under the syndicate's relentless assault. The sky had split open with bursts of alien weaponry, the air thick with screams and smoke. He'd watched helplessly as his family's faces blurred into the inferno, their voices swallowed by the chaos. The memory was a wound that never healed, a cruel reminder of what the syndicates had taken, and what he was fighting to reclaim. "Kale," a raspy voice whispered in his comlink, barely audible over the market's din. "Intel confirms shipment is docked. The prototype's core is secured in Dock 7. Guards are heavier than usual." He exhaled slowly, the weight of the mission pressing down like iron chains. "Copy that. I'm inside," he replied, voice steady despite the knot tightening in his gut. Navigating the labyrinthine stalls, Kale wove through the crowd, each step calculated, each breath measured. The air was thick with exotic scents, burnt ozone, fermented spices, and the acrid tang of illicit tech. Towering insectoid vendors with shimmering carapaces hawked stolen contraband, alongside wiry reptilian dealers who slit pupils, flicked with suspicion. Kale's presence was that of a shadow, blending yet always on edge. "Hey, human," hissed a serpentine trader, eyes narrowing as he blocked Kale's path. "You're not from these parts. What's your business here?" Kale's hand twitched near the concealed pouch beneath his jacket, the pulsating heart of the Starbreaker prototype. He forced a tight smile, voice low and even. "Just looking for passage, nothing more." The trader's gaze lingered, searching for deceit. "Passage costs credits and trust." "Neither are in abundance tonight," Kale replied, stepping around him before the trader could react. His heart hammered against his ribs as he approached the shadowed entrance of Dock 7. Guards, clad in obsidian armor etched with syndicate insignias, patrolled in pairs, their plasma rifles held ready. Kale's breath caught. The risk was monumental, yet the fire within him blazed hotter than fear. He crouched behind a stack of crates, fingers deftly manipulating a compact hacking device. Sparks flickered as the panel yielded, granting him access to the docking bay's inner sanctum. Slipping inside, the sterile metallic corridors hummed with an eerie quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Ahead, nestled within a reinforced containment unit, lay the prototype's core, a compact orb emitting a faint azure glow. Kale's pulse quickened, fingers brushing the cool surface. This was the key to rebellion, the weapon that could turn the tide against the syndicate's tyranny. Suddenly, footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate. Kale froze, pressing himself against the cold wall as two guards approached. their voices low but urgent. "Intel says the human's here. Don't let him slip away." One growled, his breath ragged. Kale's mind raced. The element of surprise was gone. He couldn't afford a firefight. Too many variables, too many innocent lives at risk. Yet hesitation could be fatal. With a swift motion, he activated a smoke grenade, the chamber hissing as thick gray clouds billowed, choking the corridor. Coughing, the guards fumbled, weapons firing blindly into the haze. Kale seized the moment, clutching the weapon core as he bolted toward the emergency exit. The black market erupted into chaos, alarms shrieking as syndicate enforcers converged. Kale's legs pumped with desperate speed, weaving through panicked crowds. Neon signs flickered erratically, casting distorted shadows that danced like specters on cracked walls. "Stop him!" a commanding voice rang out, heavy boots pounding the metallic floor behind him. Kale's breath burned, lungs screaming for air, but surrender was unthinkable. Each stride was fueled by memories of loss, the faces of his family etched into his resolve. This weapon is more than technology, it's hope. He ducked into a narrow alley, the hum of pursuit fading but never disappearing. His fingers trembled as he secured the core, whispering a vow beneath ragged breath. For them, for all of us. Yet beneath the fierce determination lurked a gnawing doubt. Was he becoming the monster he despised? Was the path of vengeance leading him to sacrifice the very humanity he sought to save? Kale shook the thought away. There was no time for doubt. The rebellion depended on him. The stars held their breath, waiting for the spark he carried in his hands. Tonight, the silent war would roar to life, and nothing would ever be the same again. Whispers, Kale hissed under his breath, crouched low behind a stack of crates deep within the syndicate's shadowed enclave. The cold metal beneath his fingertips vibrated subtly, the faint hum of encrypted transmissions crackling through hidden comm channels. Syndicate members exchanged cryptic warnings, their voices low and clipped, shadows flickering in the dim light. They know, Kale thought, his mind racing as snippets of conversation drifted to him like poisonous smoke. Human resistance is growing, the weapon's deadly potential. It's more than they bargained for. His dark eyes scanned the shifting crowd, searching for signs of betrayal. Surveillance drones hovered just out of sight, their lenses glinting like predatory eyes. Someone suspected an infiltrator. The subtle tightening of security, the furtive glances exchanged, these were the early tremors of a storm. Kale's pulse quickened, a bead of sweat tracing a cold line down his temple. "I'm running out of time." Suddenly, a voice cracked sharply, slicing through the murmur. "You're too close, human." Kale froze, senses snapping to high alert. Negotiations were unfolding nearby. A tense parley between syndicate lieutenants and an alien faction intent on securing new contracts. The air was thick with suspicion and the acrid scent of burnt plasma. Kale's heart hammered against his ribs as he edged closer, eyes locked on the heavily guarded vault rumored to house the prototype weapon. A sudden movement, a guard's shadow stretching over him, forced Kale to dive sideways, narrowly avoiding the heavy boot aimed to crush him. The metallic clang echoed like a gunshot, and shouts erupted around him. There, the infiltrator! Breathing ragged, Kale pressed himself against the cold wall, muscles coiled like a spring. The crowd's chaotic uproar was both shield and threat. Somewhere in the tumult, a sympathetic alien contact, Lyra, a slender, violet-skinned smuggler with eyes like molten silver, called out softly, "Kale, get out! It's a trap!" His chest tightened. Lyra had risked everything to help him, smuggling intel and safe passage when no one else would. But to maintain his cover, Kale knew what he had to do. The weight of that decision crushed him. Betray her. The thought felt like a blade twisting in his gut. He whispered back, voice barely audible, "I'm sorry, Lyra. This is the only way." The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, the relentless beat of pursuit closing in. Kale's breath hitched as he slipped into the shadows, leaving behind the flicker of trust in Lyra's eyes. How far must I go to save them all? The question gnawed at him, fracturing the resolve he'd fought so hard to build. Hours later, After evading patrols and scrambling through labyrinthine corridors, Kale stood before the vault, a monolith of reinforced steel etched with ominous syndicate sigils. His fingers trembled as he produced a forged access key, the holographic interface flickering to life. Every nerve screamed as he bypassed security protocols, each beep echoing like a death knell. Inside, nestled within the vault's heart, lay the prototype weapon. Its sleek form pulsed with an eerie blue glow, humming with latent power that seemed almost alive. Kale's breath caught. This was the prize, the Starbreaker core, the device capable of ending the Syndicate's reign. His steps were measured, deliberate, every movement a dance with danger. One wrong sound, one flicker of light, could spell doom. He crouched low, fingers deftly disengaging the containment unit. The cool orb in his palm vibrated softly, a heartbeat of destructive potential. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence, cold, familiar. "Looking for this, Kale?" He spun, heart leaping into his throat. Standing in the doorway was Rill, his former ally turned traitor, eyes dark with betrayal and malice. Once a brother-in-arms, now a syndicate enforcer. Kale's mind reeled. How long has he been waiting here, watching? Rill's smirk was a blade. "You really thought you could take the weapon and walk away?" Kale's grip tightened on the core. "I don't want to fight you, Rill. This isn't the way." Too late for that. Rill lunged, plasma blade slicing through the air. Kale dodged, the air sizzling where the blade had passed. Every instinct screamed survival, but beneath it all churned the storm of conflicted loyalty. Could he kill the man who once trusted him? The question tore at his soul as they clashed, metal against metal, shadow against shadow. The fight was brutal, a deadly ballet in the sterile vault. Kale's muscles burned, his breath ragged, but determination sharpened his senses. With a desperate move, he disarmed Rill, sending the plasma blade skittering across the floor. "Last chance," Kale said, voice low and steady. "Stand down." Rill's eyes flickered. Regret, anger, something buried deep. Then with a snarl, he charged again. Kale sidestepped, pushing Rill into the vault's inner wall. The impact stunned them both. Seizing the moment, Kale grabbed the Starbreaker core, clutching it tightly. But the struggle had triggered alarms. Red lights bathed the room in a hellish glow as the Syndicate's lockdown engaged. Doors sealed with a hiss. Security protocols screamed into life. "Lockdown initiated," a cold voice intoned over the intercom. "Intruder detected. Containment protocols active." Kale's heart pounded. Escape was no longer a choice, it was a necessity. But the path was blocked, the Syndicate closing in fast. "Lyra!" Kale's voice cracked as he heard her frantic call over the comm link. "I'm trapped. Get out. Save yourself." "No," Kale whispered fiercely. "I can't leave you." But the echoes of approaching boots told a cruel truth. Time was a luxury they didn't have. With a final, wrenching glance, Kale slipped through a narrow maintenance shaft. The Starbreaker core, pulsing like a living thing against his chest. Behind him, the distant shouts faded, replaced by the cold silence of sacrifice. As he vanished into the shadows, the weight of his choices bore down, friendship sacrificed, trust shattered. The price of rebellion, steeped in blood and betrayal. Kale's mind reeled, but his resolve burned brighter than ever. The weapon was his prize, but the war was far from over. Humanity's hope rested on the edge of a blade, and Kale was ready to wield it, no matter the cost. Kale's breath came in ragged gasps as he pressed his back against the jagged wall of the crumbling settlement on the remote human colony. The alien forces were closing in, their armored exosuits clanking ominously through the dust-choked streets, their weapons raised and merciless. Around him, the scattered remains of makeshift homes and shattered market stalls bore mute witness to the destruction already wrought. "Give it up, human," snarled one of the alien commanders, his voice a guttural rasp that echoed off the metal remnants of the settlement. "Return the weapon, and your suffering will end." Kale's dark eyes flicked over the approaching figures, calculating, desperate. The stolen weapon, their last hope, throbbed faintly beneath his jacket, a cold, humming heartbeat against his ribs. He had come too far, sacrificed too much. for this to end in capture or death. His mind reeled back to the faces he had left behind, his family, lost to the syndicate's merciless advance. The echo of their screams haunted him still, each memory a sharpened blade twisted deep in his soul. He swallowed hard, the weight of guilt pressing down like the heavy gravity of a collapsing star. Innocent lives had been caught in the crossfire of his rebellion, people he had sworn to protect. Was this weapon truly salvation, or had it become a curse? A sudden blast tore through the air, as plasma bolts scorched the cracked ground nearby. Kale rolled behind a fractured wall, shards of debris biting into his skin. The alien forces advanced with cold precision, their relentless siege a storm of destruction. "Kale!" a voice hissed through his comlink. Lyra's silver eyes gleamed in the flickering light. "They're tightening the noose. You have to decide, now." His fingers clenched into fists. The ethical quandary that had plagued him since the theft surged like a tidal wave. Use the weapon's devastating power against the syndicate flagship and risk annihilating countless civilians, his own people. Relinquish it and let the rebellion falter, crushed beneath alien oppression. The distant roar of engines marked the approach of the syndicate's flagship, a colossal vessel casting an oppressive shadow over the colony. Its hull gleamed with cold menace, a dark monolith of tyranny. Kale's jaw set. He could hear the cries of terrified colonists mingling with the alien battle cries innocent bystanders caught. Between forces beyond their control, his heart thundered in his chest, torn between the imperative of rebellion and the cost of collateral damage. He stepped out from cover, voice low but resolute. "There's no turning back." With a trembling hand, he activated the weapon core. A surge of power rippled through the air as the Starbreaker awoke, its energy coalescing into a focused beam of raw destruction. Time seemed to slow as Kale aimed at the flagship, his breath hitching in a mixture of fear and determination. The beam struck with cataclysmic force, tearing through the vessel's armored hull, igniting explosions that lit the dark sky in fiery blossoms. The flagship shuddered, systems failing, chaos erupting among the alien ranks. Yet behind the devastation, the colony trembled as shockwaves tore through buildings, sending dust and debris into the air. Screams pierced the cacophony, innocents caught in the crossfire. Kale dropped to his knees, anguish ripping through him. The weapon had wrought havoc, both victory and ruin intertwined in a brutal symphony. He closed his eyes, the faces of the fallen haunting every heartbeat. "Kale!" Lyra's voice broke through the turmoil, urgent and pained. "You did what you had to. The rebellion, it's alive now." He shook his head slowly, voice barely a whisper. "At what cost? How many more must suffer for this hope?" The internal fracture deepened, a chasm of doubt and resolve. The ends had been achieved, but the means, had they corrupted him? Could he live with the weight of this choice? From the shadows, the alien forces recoiled, but seethed with hatred, their reprisals swift and brutal. The colony became a battleground, the fragile flame of rebellion kindled, but surrounded by darkness. Amid the chaos, Kale rose, battered but unbroken. His gaze hardened, a new fire kindling within. The weapon had shattered the syndicate's grip, for now, but the war was far from over. He whispered into the void, a vow carried on the wind. "For them, for all of us, this is only the beginning." The stolen weapon had unleashed devastation, fractured lives, and ignited a spark of hope that could not be extinguished. Kale stood at the crossroads of salvation and damnation, his path forged in sacrifice, his soul scarred but resolute. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the next chapter of rebellion to unfold, and Kale, burdened yet unyielding, would lead the charge into the unknown. The night air was thick with tension as Kale moved through the shattered remnants of human colonies, his presence a whispered promise amid the ruin. The stolen weapon had done its job, shattered the syndicate's grip on the flagship. But the victory was far from clean, far from simple. From the ashes of devastation, a fragile coalition of human survivors began to stir. Galvanized by Kale's daring act into coordinated uprisings, that flickered like fragile flames against the encroaching darkness. In makeshift camps carved from rubble and reinforced scrap, guerrilla fighters trained under the flickering glow of salvaged hololamps. Every whispered plan and hurried message carried the weight of desperation and hope. Kale's name passed through these hidden channels like a rallying cry. He was no longer just a smuggler. He had become a symbol of resistance. Yet beneath the veneer of legend, he wrestled with the ghosts that trailed him, survivors' guilt gnawing at his conscience, a relentless reminder of the cost paid by those who had fallen. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the fractured skyline, Kale gathered with a small circle of rebels in a hollowed-out warehouse, its walls scarred by past skirmishes. The air was thick with smoke and tension, the faces around him etched with weariness and fierce determination. "We need a clear plan," demanded Mara, the sharp-eyed leader of the northern cells. Her voice cut through the murmurs, eyes locked on Kale. "Unity is fragile. Some factions want to push harder, risk everything. Others say we should wait, build strength. Where do you stand?" Kale ran a hand through his tangled hair, the weight of leadership settling uneasily on his shoulders. "We can't afford fractures," he said, voice rough but steady. "Our strength is in coordination, but we must be careful, not just with our tactics, but with what we become. The syndicates want to break us, not just our bodies, but our spirits." Jerk, a grizzled veteran with a jagged scar tracing his jaw, scoffed. "Spirits, we're fighting for survival, Kale. Sentiment won't stop the exosuits or their plasma fire." Kale met his gaze, the fire in his own eyes tempered by a deep exhaustion. "No, but what we fight for does. Freedom isn't just about toppling oppressors, it's about preserving what makes us human. Mercy, hope, the courage to look beyond the enemy and see the cost." A heavy silence followed. The rebels shifted uncomfortably, the truth of Kale's words settling like dust in the air. It was easy to forget, in the heat of battle, the innocent lives caught between lines of fire. But Kale's resolve was rooted in these complexities, in the moral labyrinth the war had become. Later, as the camp settled into uneasy rest, Kale stepped outside, the cold night biting at his skin. In the distance, the faint glow of alien patrols flickered like ominous stars. His thoughts drifted to the innocents, the alien civilians displaced, terrified, trapped in the crossfire of this relentless war. The enemy was no faceless demon, but a complex web of beings, many unwilling participants in a conflict they neither started nor desired. Kale's jaw clenched. He had seen too much death, too much destruction. The rebellion's path was strewn with sacrifice, but he vowed it would not become a spiral of hatred. His empathy, once a hidden ember, now burned fiercely, shaping his vision of victory, not just in domination, but in reconciliation. A soft voice broke his reverie. "Kale!" He turned to see Lyra approaching, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You carry the weight of more than this war," she said gently. "But you're not alone. We all do. That's why we fight, not just for revenge, but for a future where none of this is necessary." He nodded, the camaraderie a balm to his fractured spirit. "Tomorrow, the syndicates will push back harder. The battles ahead will test us like never before, but we'll face them together, for the colonies, for humanity." As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood and gold, Kale retreated to a quiet corner of the camp. The stolen weapons core, now safely secured, pulsed faintly beneath his jacket, a reminder of both hope and devastation. In the stillness, his inner voice spoke with quiet clarity. "Victory is not just about defeating the enemy, but about preserving what makes us human." The words were a mantra, a promise to himself and those who would follow. The war was far from over. The alliances were fragile, the battles brutal, and the cost immense. Yet within the storm, a new dawn flickered, one forged not only from fire and blood, but from the indomitable spirit of those who refused to surrender their humanity. Kale stood at the edge of that dawn, battered but unbroken, ready to lead the ongoing struggle for liberation, not just against the alien syndicates, but against the darkness within himself and the war that threatened to consume all. The fight ahead was a labyrinth of shadows and light, but in his heart burned a steadfast hope that in the end, freedom would mean more than survival. It would mean the preservation of a future worth living.